Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into an absolutely captivating narrative today titled Moment XIX From Castle to Cliff. You know, if you've ever wondered how simply traveling somewhere new can completely rewire your psychology, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to trace this vivid, deeply transformative journey of culture, of courage, and of profound self-discovery. We'll be following our protagonist as she steps way out of her comfort zone. I mean, we're talking about moving from the cozy, predictable safety of her kitchen all the way to the imposing stone walls of a French castle, and finally to the very edge of a terrifyingly high ocean cliff. Okay, let's dive into this. And as we do, I want you to imagine the kind of transformative secrets you might discover when you eventually explore these pages for yourself.
India mein aisa kaha? Or translated, where in India is there something like this? This powerful little quote, whispered in total awe, perfectly captures the core theme of our explainer today. I mean, it is literally the sound of a worldview expanding in real time. Our protagonist, a young woman from Meerut, India, finds herself staring at a landscape so cinematic, so completely foreign, that it shakes the very foundation of what she knows. But to really understand how she got to this breathtaking moment of cultural wonder, we got to start much smaller. Actually, we have to start with lunch.
And right here is where our narrative arc begins. Ground level, right in the safety of domestic life. On one hand, you've got the European perception of Indian food from local takeaway restaurants. But on the other hand, you have the reality of a simple, beautifully packed homemade lunch. Rotis, aloo gobi sabji, and moong dal packed tightly into a steel tiffin. Our protagonist actually packed this for her husband, Prakhar, to take to his office in France. And while he was sitting there eating alone in the cafeteria, an older French colleague named Laurent caught that rich, aromatic scent of cumin and garlic. He stopped like a curious little dog right in his tracks and asked to try it. And honestly, one bite of that real, homemade taste was all it took. A life-changing friendship was instantly sparked.
It's amazing how quickly food breaks down cultural barriers, isn't it? 3 days a week, Laurent started joining Prakhar for coffee. They'd chat about sports, argue about politics. But then came the proposal. Laurent invited Prakhar and our protagonist to visit a massive royal castle just outside Paris where his brother actually worked. But there was one strict condition for this invitation. They absolutely had to bring homemade biryani. No exceptions. It was basically going to be a cultural exchange, swapping Indian culinary art for French royal history.
Now, before we actually get to the castle, I want to highlight this number for you, 14. During the car ride there, Laurent casually drops a fascinating detail. He and his brother Thierry come from a massive family of 14 children. 14! Their parents even received a medal from the mayor for it. Yet, contrasting so sharply with that big traditional history, Laurent chooses to live a very modern, single life. He enjoys his freedom, travels the world. This stark contrast between traditional, large family dynamics and total modern independence gives our protagonist a lot to quietly chew on from the back seat.
Okay, let's move to our first major destination and see how this all builds. Welcome to the Château de Chambord. Just look at the sheer scale of this place. It's wild. Built way back in 1519, this fairy tale castle boasts 440 rooms and an unbelievable 365 chimneys, literally one for every single day of the year. Imagine standing before this, the gray-white stone practically glowing in the sunlight. And there to greet them is Laurent's brother, Thierry Dubois. He's a former professor and sculptor with these rough, artistic hands, and he now curates and breathes life back into this sleeping giant of a castle.
So during Thierry's fascinating historical tour, he reveals this brilliant architectural trick, the king's famous twin spiral staircases. Picture two stone staircases twisting together, spiraling all the way to the top, but never ever touching. As Thierry whispers to them, the queen climbed on the left staircase, the mistress went down the right one. They never saw each other. I mean, what a masterful piece of 16th century design built entirely around managing royal drama.
But our protagonist doesn't just see cool stone here. She sees a really profound internal reflection. Touching that cold castle wall, she realizes that modern relationships kind of mirror these twin staircases. It's two people climbing through life together, staying incredibly close, yet occasionally separated by these small walls, constantly learning how to navigate the ascent and eventually meet at the top. It beautifully anchors the cold, distant history of the castle to the very real, beating emotional reality of modern love. It's a realization you'll feel deeply as you unpack the rest of her journey.
You know, the craziest part of travel is finding connections where you least expect them, sometimes even in the restroom. Thierry guides her to the historic 1500s washing rooms to show her the old stone toilets. And surprisingly, They are squat-style toilets, exactly like the ones used back in India. Thierry proudly points out that modern science actually supports this position for way better digestion and spinal health, basically noting that India had this figured out 500 years before France caught up. It's just a wonderful, funny moment of tasteful humor and unexpected cultural pride.
Finally, the grand exchange happens right there in the recently restored royal gardens. The steel dabbas pop open, releasing this warm, rich saffron smell that completely fills the crisp French air. Thierry brings vegetarian sandwiches and orange juice over from the cafe. As Thierry tastes the biryani, he literally closes his eyes and calls it rice poetry. He even eats his sandwich right alongside the biryani, happily declaring that a new fusion is born today. It perfectly, beautifully symbolizes the harmonious blending of their two completely distinct worlds.
Which brings us to part 1, the Island of Faith. This is where things start to escalate.
Our protagonist, in Proctor, join a group of friends for a famous pilgrimage to Mont Saint Michel. Now, let me be clear, this is not a relaxed royal tour like the castle. They depart at 5:30 in the morning with absolutely no breakfast, endure a grueling 3.5-hour drive out to the coast, and arrive at this silver wooden bridge during low tide. And the physical toll? It sets in fast. They walk through a tiny village built straight into a rock, climbing these narrow, twisted pathways. You can almost feel the burn in their legs, the heavy, gasping breaths halfway up. It's an exhausting ascent that deeply mirrors the suffering and the sheer dedication of the medieval pilgrims who walked that exact same path barefoot centuries ago.
But wow, the reward is immense. When they finally reach the abbey at the top, the entire atmosphere shifts. The walls up there are thick, described so vividly as being like elephant skin. Inside it is suddenly cool and dark, with the gentle, haunting echo of monk chants filling the air. Looking out the huge windows, the sand just stretches endlessly below them. It's a truly holy place, where the sea, the sky, and the stone hold centuries of stories, and this unshakable, profound peace.
And that sets the stage for part 2, the Cliff of Courage, the final climax of our journey.
Seeking an escape from the heavy crowds and those endless stairs, they travel over to Étretat in Normandy. Now this is significant. This is a region whose very shores echo with the legendary courage of the 1944 D-Day landings. It's where Allied forces showed ultimate, world-changing bravery. So you have this historically weighty backdrop setting the scene for a deeply personal test of bravery. Étretat itself is a pristine, cinematic fishing village. Instead of sand, it has this smooth, round pebble beach that makes the calm water look completely crystal clear. And standing like a magnificent guard in the distance is the Porte de Val, an 80-meter-tall natural white arch shaped by the sea. Honestly, it's so stunning it feels like a movie set. The perfect, quiet place for a massive personal transformation. Rather than sticking with the crowds down below, they decide to take the natural, quiet path up the right side of the hill. Let's trace this upward path together, because this is where the tension really starts to build. First, they brush past tall grass and wildflowers. Then, they carefully climb a quiet, totally uneven natural stairway where literally every step requires focus. They reach a beautifully wide, untouched open field at the top, but then comes the cliff trail. It is barely a strip of earth, narrow, uneven, and carved dangerously close to the edge. And right beside that narrow strip of earth is this terrifying reality, a 50-meter drop. 50 meters! Below them is absolutely nothing but the hard pebble beach. The wind up there is cold and salty, tugging violently at their clothes. The wild grass kind of hides how sharp the drop really is, and these tiny loose stones under their shoes make it feel like a single misstep could send them slipping right over the edge. The waves below hiss softly, almost as if they're whispering a constant warning to step carefully.
But right then, Proctor gently tells her to look at the water. Just look at the water. And when she does, that paralyzing fear violently clashes with this magnetic, awe-inspiring beauty. The sea is unbelievably clear. The deep blue literally melts into bright turquoise near the shore, and the sunlight dances on the waves like shattered glass. To put it into perspective, the famous artist Claude Monet literally set up his easel and painted this exact landscape. Standing there, feeling the fresh wind and tasting the salt on her lips, they are quite literally living inside a masterpiece.
And here is the absolute climax of our psychological growth. This is the so what moment. On the left, we have the self-described Meerut girl, a 27-year-old who used to be terrified of crossing even small, busy streets in her hometown back in India. But on the right, we have the woman she has become, in this very moment, standing on a tiny strip of earth, fully conquering a 50-meter drop with the open sea roaring below her.
When Prakhar asks her if she has no fear, her answer is so deeply profound. Yes, fear, but couldn't stop. Wanted that view, needed to prove myself. I love this because it brilliantly illustrates that true transformation isn't about the magical disappearance of fear. There's no magic wand. It's about feeling the terror in your legs, feeling those tiny stones slipping under your shoes, and making the active, conscious choice to push forward anyway. As you absorb her words, you might find yourself reflecting on the cliffs in your own life. She owned her bravery, right there.
Sitting on the beach afterward, breathing the same air as her husband, everything shifts for her. She notes that her upbringing always taught her to play it safe, keep her head down, but Europe, and this cliff specifically, taught her to fight fear. France shows, life's short, be brave. This newfound courage rewires her perspective completely. I mean, even spotting a completely nude French couple relaxing down the beach, which would have been a shocking sight to her initially, suddenly just feels like a normal, unapologetic celebration of freedom. She has won a massive internal victory.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We've watched a simple lunchbox open the literal doors to a royal castle, and a grueling climb lead to the ultimate conquering of fear on a 50-meter cliff. Her heart was forever changed. So I leave you with this to ponder. If just one chapter, one single story, can conquer a lifetime of ingrained fear, imagine the massive, life-altering transformations hiding in the rest of this memoir. The real question isn't just what happens next, but how you will feel when you finally hold these pages and experience that kind of courage for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep exploring, and hey, stay brave out there.